afternoon, everyone. It's the second In Conversation series of 2023. It's 12 o'clock, and it's the eighth one in the total series from the beginning of last year. My name is Ronelle Klein. I'm the CEO of the Fluid Rock Governance Group. I'll be your host for the next hour. Thank you very much for joining us. We have these sessions for a few reasons. Number one is to share conversations, get input from all of those who attend. And, we really like to understand how these issues are affecting what's happening at a board and committee level in terms of corporate governance as well. So we link that at the end usually. Today, we've got a very interesting topic. It's all about the latest trends in cyber attacks and cybersecurity. And I'm joined by David Green, who I introduced just now. He is the managing director at Switched on IT, and they deal with this on a daily basis. Every single person and every single company are exposed and are potential targets for hackers who are highly organized, and they're experts at this. In January, there was a latest court case where ENS, one of the largest law firms, found that that they were actually, in an inadvertent way, part of a scheme. So what happened is, and they were fined. They were fined about 5.5 million rand. That's about 400,000 US, because one of their clients fell victim to a syndicate that hacked her email during a property purchase. So the hackers changed the bank account number in the PDF email to her by ENS, and they were doing the conveyancing transaction for the house she was buying from a client. So the court found that ENS failed in its duty of care when it failed to warn the house buyer about the threat posed by hackers. So it's insane, how far the courts are taking this duty. The client lost millions after the hackers changed the bank account. And then, the court said that, well, basically for as little as 2,000 Rand a month, they could have warned her and they could have put measures in place to prevent this. So we are seeing that in this case, instead of the money landing in the bank account and the trust account of the law firm, it landed into the bank account of the hackers. So risks are materializing for organizations in ways that wasn't even on their radar before. And I would say that, digital risks are quite high on agendas that I've seen from boards and committee meetings. So today we are going to chat to David. We're really going to talk about the evolution of cybercrime, where we are today, possible solutions, and really about what should the boards be looking at? What should they be overseeing? We have attendees online from all across different jurisdictions. They have different experience levels, and you might have information or knowledge that we're not talking about, or that's different from what we're talking about. So please put that in the chat, put that in the Q&A. Love to hear from you. We're going to go back to the chat and the Q&A the whole time to go and check what there is. So use it for questions, comments, or anything that you want us to raise. Also, if there's any other topics that you want to discuss in future webinars, please plonk that there. We are always open to see what are the topics that's on people's radar that I want to discuss. So coming to introducing David, which I'm very much looking forward to. Like I said, David is the MD at Switch on IT. He's been in the industry for more than 2 decades. Him and his team helps with all kinds of services, including managed IT support services, cloud transformation, security, and it is, his CV is quite impressive. So, David, welcome to the discussion today.
Thank you, Ronelle. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you. Tell us a little bit about what's the situation that we find ourselves in, and how did we get here?
So when you ask how did we get here, it all started with phone hacking back in the day, or phone phreaking, what it was called back in the 80s. If we all remember the ticky boxes, well, I do, I'm old enough, and guys found a way to go tick, tick, tick on it to hack through, get free phone calls. So that's kind of like the evolution of where we find ourselves today, all the way through to emails being used as a way for attackers to get in, using phishing, through to websites, through to where we are today, where servers and computers are being hacked, people don't know, and little servers are being dropped on these machines that are running things all the way through to Bitcoin mining. So it's crazy how large and the scale has gone to.
Yeah, that's insane. So are you saying that they're hacking Bitcoin mining?
So they are creating Bitcoin mines on enterprises, servers, and desktop computers without the end users or even the IT guys knowing. And creating their own little mines.
And that means that it's free for them, and then it actually causes strain on the servers of the organizations and the speed.
Correct. And more than that, it's opened up portals for ransomware artists to get easily into the companies and shut down those servers and ask for, well, that's why it's called ransomware, for ransom money to free up those servers again.
I mean, that is crazy. I mean, I think all of us know someone that has had to, that's been a victim of that. I mean, my orthodontist, who runs a small little spot in Joburg, well, it's quite an amazing place, but I mean, he was hacked, and he actually got an email that looks very professional. They treated him like a client. They said, "We're very sorry for the inconvenience caused with disruption in your service. But if you pay this, if you settle your account, all will be restored." So it was very polite. It wasn't as if it was very, it was handled in a quite a macabre way.
Yeah, agreed. It's calmed down with the extent of security from our side and our experience with what we've been in, which we'll talk about today. I would say that 2021 was a rough year for that. You'll find that most enterprises that are looked after well stopped receiving that through the end of 2022 up till today. I think we've got an angle on that now.
Oh, so basically, I think these hackers it seems as if they're quite innovative. They're ahead of the curve, and the rest of us are playing catch up every time someone gets hit. Is that 100%. Kind of how
we're always one day behind?
One day behind. So I see there's a slide on screen about some of the institutions that's been hit that you're aware of. Do you want to just explain that a little bit to us?
Sure. And this follows on your introduction from your experience. So the city of Johannesburg in 2019, as I explained to you, that ransomware attack where they shut down the server, they combined all the data into like a little zip file, and very, very, like you said, well, man had asked for money to unzip it. So city of Johannesburg 2019, because the servers got shut down, services got shut down, billing online, email systems, a whole lot. University of Wits, Waterstrand, it's called Wits, 2020 had the same type of attack. Their websites and all their online learning shut down overnight. And the Life Healthcare Group in 2020, same type of model, ransomware, and their patients could not be admitted because all the data was all inside a zip file, and no one could get into it until that ransomware was paid.
I mean, I think that can be very, very disruptive for organization. I mean, what is your experience? You don't have to disclose any client information, of course, but I mean, my experience has been that companies pay. If you're hit by ransomware or your data is hijacked, mostly I have found that the companies have no other way but to pay. Or do you think I've got a different experience than what is really going on out there?
So your data is only as good as your recovery test, which we'll be getting to later in the slides. So my experience has been for clients or stories that I hear that where there's been no extant disaster recovery plan in place, it's dreadful. The ransomware artist shuts everything down, and if you don't pay that money to recover that data, there are various ways it's hell. One way is you can go into all your staff's emails and do a search for every attachment, because pretty much everything we work on is in email. Can you imagine scouring through thousands of emails trying to find data and then putting it back into a file and folder? So that's a manual solution to when someone locks down all your data and you don't want to pay. The right answer is to back up everything on an offsite space, so away from where your data is stored. So if they do shut down your data, You just give them the middle finger and ignore what they said and just create a restore process using your disaster recovery policies. So it is all very, very green, and there's a wonderful solution to all this, but it's got to be put in place. And it all comes down to governance, which is your space, Renal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we go to the next slide, I mean, if we really look at the stats internationally, you know, it says top cyber attacks against businesses. This I got, you know, I found it a very interesting way of depicting this, is that the first one is business email attack was successful into tricking a lower level employee. And if you go through all of these, there's phishing, malware, there's all kinds of stuff. But if you really go into it, your biggest risk when it comes to cyber crime, cyber attacks, and cyber security is the user.
Yes, you're speaking my language.
Okay.
So end user training is at the top of our list in solving this problem. If we train end users and on an often basis, because remember, we're always one step behind, as the hackers find ways to get in, and you have a system in place, which we'll get to train end users on what to look out for. Silly thing, for example, is when you're in an internet cafe, don't connect to any published Wi-Fi, use the internet on your phone. Silly little things like that get trained to end users. And things like memory sticks, how not to leave offices with them. Things like don't post pictures of you and your business associates on Facebook. These are things that we're educating end users about, small little bits and bytes of what hackers are using to socially identify people. That nips, and the statistics are there. Immediately, I think 70% of business risk is just melts away once end users are trained up. Well done.
So, I mean, is that really because of social engineering? I mean, that you wouldn't post you and your colleagues? Because, I mean, that's such a natural thing to do.
Yes, so social engineering is part of what hackers are using. There is still the old school way of just sending, not social engineering, but an email, a phishing mail saying, hi, we are Microsoft. Please click here and give us your username and password. So it's end users need to be aware of social engineering as well as technical engineering and all other aspects of how baddies are trying to get into our clients' networks. Social engineering is one part of it.
Maybe, I mean, we have a range of people online. We've got very experienced people, and we've got people who doesn't deal with this at all. Maybe you can just explain a little bit exactly what is social engineering.
Sure. So it's got different aspects to it, but in simple terms, if I work for Microsoft and someone can, in simple terms, get me to get to know who I am, who I play with, who I work with, and who I love, then it's very possible they could work out the password to some of my logins. This is very simple terms, but one example. So by doing that, they are socially engineering, they're copying who I am and getting into my systems. Another great example, which is very recent, is WhatsApp social engineering. If a baddie can get hold of my WhatsApp photo, which is easy to do, they just say, hi, your photo pops up if you reply, and my cell phone number and my name, which we all publish on LinkedIn, they can WhatsApp one of my clients very easily and say, hey, it's Dave, and I won't even check that the number's changed. Can you please pay this bank account rather than the previous bank account? Because as we all know, we are using WhatsApp to do business. It's so simple to do business on WhatsApp now rather than email and phone calls and online CRM systems. So those are two real good social engineering examples of how people are getting conned to pay and lose money in the wrong place.
I think that way you've just explained it. Somehow changing, given an instruction like a bank account, is the same that somehow happened to ENS. They didn't prevent it though. I mean, that seems to be almost the most popular modus operandi of working, is change a bank account and pay me.
Yes. So email has got various security barriers. We are finding when we win, this is from my experience, new business, the email systems have not got those barriers activated, and most of them are free. So you've got to really interrogate the people looking after your mail, after your domain, to ensure that if your mail goes out and it gets grabbed by a hacker, if they change those bank account details and send it on to the receiver, it very clearly shows that it wasn't from you. Those solutions are in place today, but people aren't aware of it. And that's why people like me need to spread the word and preach that these are all possible, actually quite easy fixes with clicks of buttons that isn't being done.
So you're saying there's stuff available. I'm assuming it's not ridiculously expensive that could be deployed by companies to prevent kind of this one, because I can imagine if a client says, or if the client pays to a wrong account, I'm sure they're not going to. Well, I don't know what happens, but I mean, it's uncomfortable.
Would be very clear when they get an email from the baddie. It would very clearly be shown that it's not from you. Using some of the solutions in place today.
Okay.
Your signature will be all messed up, and that's one of the fixes. It's called online stamping, and the person sending on that mail won't have that online stamping solution. So the signature would be different. That's one example of what we do. We also have other tools like SPDIF and other fancy technical stuff we put in place two-level authentication, and that it can't be hacked. From the send, it's almost impossible. Once again, we're one day behind, but there's solutions in place.
Yeah, I mean, you use the word impossible, and one of the things I've realized that it is you can do as much as you can afford and what you can, but it never means you're 100% secure, right?
Yeah. So it's a risk versus cost conversation.
Okay, so let's go to the trends. The next slide, to the trends. Talk us through this, please, David.
Yes, sure. So the three things that we're noticing that enterprise and medium-sized businesses, CIOs, the technical leaders are leaning towards is the cloud has become king, and it's definitely a South African trend as well. We're all using Microsoft 365 more and more, and we're using something called SharePoint and OneDrive as our file servers. I wonder if everybody in this forum is resonating with that. It's definitely a big trend, and switching off our file servers at the office. We're also all working from home. So cloud is king at the moment. And so cloud security has become the priority at the moment. And it should be, going forward, because this is the trend of IT. So organizations are adopting cloud, therefore cloud security has to be top of mind. And cloud security is different from traditional security at our offices. So you've got to have a really smart board of people kind of guiding what that means. So that's cloud. The next trend is artificial intelligence. I don't know if everybody's been on ChatGPT yet. It's been lots of fun. It actually helped me with this talk today. And artificial intelligence is way ahead of the human curve, and artificial intelligence is helping the baddies as well find ways to, and new ways to kind of get in. So we are using artificial intelligence on our software to stop them from getting in as well, using things like machine learning. So that's also a big trend. I know from our side as an MSP, our uncomfortable conversations with clients is the priority is not antivirus anymore. It's intelligent software with machine learning that sits on computers and servers watching for changes using intelligence and always connecting to the world cloud is much more powerful solutions today than just antivirus. The third trend, which is horrible, is zero trust architecture. It's basically, we say, let's just assume everyone's a baddie, no matter who you are, because of all the machine learning, and also because of all the, I've forgotten the phrase now, hoaxing of human beings. So just assume everyone's not trusted. Assume everyone's got a stolen identity, and there has to be a new way to log in every single time you want to log into the cloud as a staff member. And one solution to that is something we know called 2FA, two-factor authentication. For example, when I need to log into Microsoft or my clients, it pings on their cell phones now every single day. for clients that are concerned. So that's called zero trust. You just assume everyone's a baddie, and that's also one of the trends.
I'm just checking, David, are you real? Just in terms of ChatGPT. So
Ask me a
can
personal question.
Got your personal question. So yeah, yeah, which sports team? No. So let's keep it friendly. So I mean, you're talking about cloud security that has become a priority. I mean, for a lot of businesses, especially smaller businesses, it makes a lot of sense because you're getting great security at a affordable price, because you're almost like crowdfunding security of the company, right? Because they have mass, they can invest in this. I sat with a client the other day, and they were saying because they're so behind on their IT journey, they're actually low risk because all of their stuff is local and hardware.
Analog, yeah. Lovely.
So I was like, oh, that's a different way to think about it. And at the moment they were starting their digital transformation, that's when a lot of problems started for them. But I mean, do you think cloud is going to be the answer for a while? I mean, people you mentioned Microsoft. I mean, there's Google, Amazon, da da da. So do you think that is going to stay? And then those companies, because we're actually transferring our risk and our reliance and our trust to them to make sure that they have the required, that they're not one step behind, the hackers.
Sure. So I resonate with you that due to economy of scale, a cloud provider can definitely provide security much cheaper than we can at our offices. So as a consumer, we are driven to cloud. Microsoft is providing through the 365 service various cloud services that we can't compete at our local, even on a corporate scale. We can't put servers in and software in place and offer what Microsoft does for 192 Rand a month. It's a no-brainer. Cloud is not just going to stay, it's going to eat up any other type of IT service in the next 5 years, without a doubt. We're seeing it already with our clients. Before we were pitching to them to move to cloud, now clients are contacting us and saying, when can we move to cloud? Obviously concerned about security, but my argument is I know Internet Solutions did a survey, and I've got the study. 80% of all risk happens inside your office, 20% happens in the cloud. If we move all your data and applications to the cloud, we've just alleviated 80% of your risk, which is the human error, which we started with in this chat today, Renal.
Oh, that's interesting. So Ryan is saying re-architecting your data assets is definitely one way to limit the blast radius in a zero trust architecture. So how would you, does that ring true for you? Do you want to comment on that? Thanks for that.
So those are big words, and I'd like to just, if possible, just bring it down to layman's terms. So if I can ask, I'm not looking at the chat. Is it Ria? If you could just kind of convert that to English that we all understand.
I mean, what I'm taking from it is basically saying that the way that you set up the architecture of your data might limit the fact that if you have is limiting the blast radius. So if someone comes in and saying, well, we're not trusting our, yes, so it's by saying let's re-engineer the way we structure our data, because then that gives people limited access to different pockets of your data, and then that can limit an impact of a possible breach, right? Because we don't trust everybody. So it means you don't give access to everyone to files. It means you limit authorities, probably. Is it that kind of stuff?
So I haven't seen this particular phrase before, but I would imagine that in a zero trust architecture relationship, the concept is that there is no blast radius. So I would imagine maybe what Ryan is alluding to possibly is blast radius as in the effect of the zero trust on your staff. But I would phrase it not re-architecting, but build and architect how your assets will look at this year based on the information we know and what the zero trust policies are around that. So the answer is yes, absolutely agree with Ryan.
Yeah, I think also it links to, a lot of companies are talking about their data lake, or their data pool. And if you have just one data pool that everyone can swim in, the moment someone comes in and opens the gate to the swimming pool, they're in. But if you
Yes.
change that data lake into data puddles with ring-fence security, with limited links between them. So it's really about taking your data and making sure that it doesn't form a cohesive picture to someone that wants to get in.
So we call that a security matrix. I would imagine there's other phrases for it where a company needs to have a matrix of users defined by access control. It's typically in either in the finance department or sales, or senior management or VIP list. And then across the top of that matrix is the type of data defined. And then that's going to be pushed through in a security way of who's got access to what. However, that doesn't connect to this new zero trust architecture where no one can be trusted, whether you CIO, CEO or not. You've got to authenticate yourself no matter where that data is. I do see them as two separate policies.
Okay. Ryan, you can tell us if we're on the right track, and if you want to add to that. It sounds like you know a lot
Please
about
do.
this, so please
Yeah,
continue the comments. I mean, what is interesting for me is when you're talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning, and that you're using it, I'm sure that hackers are using it to breach, and you're using it to try and defend, right? So is this going to become a war of the machines?
I think Elon Musk needs to be called on in this conversation. He's got quite a few opinions. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows how many jobs are going to be replaced, how many jobs are going to be created with machine learning? All we can do as humans, I mean, this is a wonderful conversation over a beer or a good red wine. Let's just hope that we maintain control of this machine learning that's going on, and that there's always these kill switches as we talk about. Great chat and conversation, piece, Renelle.
Yeah, no, no, but I mean, I think there's two ways to react to that. I think the one is as people are scared or they're wondering. I think the answer is to continually upskill yourself to make sure that you're relevant, your skills, your own sets are there. I mean, the journalists, when we talk about AI and chat GPT, saying that, you can ask it and it can write a piece in your style, right? But so in future, there's discussions of saying, well, people are maybe going to only read human created content, and it has to be noted, is this human created content or is this AI created content? So signatures like that. So it's going to definitely be interesting. It's going to affect us all, but I think that there's actually quite a lot of I'm quite positive about it. I'm quite keen to see what it is. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but I think I'm a closet and not that informed, but I'm definitely a big nerd and love to read about the stuff and what's coming up. So, but I think it is about making sure that you're ahead of that curve, as a person. But I think in the trust no one policy, the zero trust architecture, I do think that seems to make sense to me. It is. I think it's about you're not trusted until you're verified. You can't come in until you're verified, right? Which is very much as if you're inviting someone in your house. It's like you don't let in until you're verified. So it's almost like keep everyone out, and then but it can be slow.
Again.
Yes, and not tomorrow again. Oh, so tomorrow you're not trusted again.
You have to re-verify.
Oh, I think it may get quite intensive. But let's say if we go to the next slide. So, I mean, one of the things I read about that I thought just on hackers that I just wanted to note, what I thought was fascinating, was there's three types of hackers. You get white hat hackers, gray hat hackers, and black hat hatter. So you can kind of get an idea that it's from the old cowboy movies where if the good guys were wearing the white hat. So the good guys are what they call ethical hackers. They hack and then they make either when it's legitimate or when they ask. So they actually have companies hire them to say, come and test our system, see if you can come in. And then they share the results. They share the weaknesses in the hardware, the software, or the networks. The extreme, the opposite is the black hats. These are the guys that are highly organized. They are malicious hackers, and they do this to profiteer. So they will take your data and resell it to you or someone else, whoever they can get the most money from. And then the gray guys are in between. They've got dubious kind of ethics, but sometimes they'll do the right thing and sometimes not. And what I found fascinating from that study or that article was that actually most white hat hackers used to be black hats. So they start off, and the way I imagine it, I mean, I don't know how true this is, please don't hack me. But it's kind of like you start off, you see what you can do, you achieve some stuff, and then probably at a point in time, you move on in age, and you get a family, and you have a job, and you need leave, and social security or insurance or something. But I mean, I find that fascinating. So so you mentioned that hacking has gone beyond viruses and antiviruses, and that's kind of, I think, where I was still. I mean, you're mentioning stuff that's very, very evolved, right?
Yes. So if the mic's over to me, it's not only just the AI space, which we spoke about earlier, but there are consortiums that actually sell hacking software to other consortiums. So it's this underground movement of way beyond the kid in the basement, of professional criminals that engage with each other and sell and also steal from each other as well. I'm not, I won't say that I'm a cyber criminal expert. I run an MSP, a general IT support company, and this is a big part of what we do. And I've got specialists that could answer, the big technical questions far better than me. But from my understanding is it's professional underground organizations like the mafia, cybercrime mafia, that are making more money than we can imagine. It's in the trillions. I think this year and in half of last year, it's started to be locked down a bit, which we'll get to, some solutions. But correct, it's beyond AI. It's a people-run underground, huge mammoth scale business.
Yeah, Carlos is just being excused now, 100%. We understand. So, I mean, what is interesting for me, it's also spanning across different languages. I mean, we got an email pretending to be me giving instructions to my team in 100% pure first language, in Afrikaans, and it was spot on. What saved us is that I don't speak like that, but it's an interesting one, and that's where you're saying that hackers are studying human behavior. They know what will lead people to disclose information. They make people comfortable. They, I mean, you are, in the lady from ENS, you are going to trust the PDF that you receive with the ENS logo on, because you're not going to doubt that the information was hacked. So it is maybe changing behavior to say, well, it's not done online. Maybe it's going to go back to important things are done face to face. Maybe it will rechange behavior, human behavior, as a result of this. It's very interesting. So talk to us about solutions. This is a scary environment, being hacked or trying to protect yourself. So what are you guys doing, or what are you proposing that companies do to protect themselves?
Okay, so I speak from experience as an MSP owner. We've simplified it into what we call the 1, 2, 3, divided into prevention, and cure. So in simple terms, as we started this conversation, is end user training. Are our staff aware of what's going on? So the answer is typically no. So the first solution is to invest in an ongoing, and I keep saying ongoing, user training system that includes training around social engineering and so on and so forth. What you'll find is, in the old days, the late 90s, 2000s, it was easy to have training for Excel and Word. This is what enterprises understand around technology, where you'd get a trainer in and they sets your staff free, they charge you a couple of grand. That's not the right investment anymore because of the changing landscape. The right solution is engaging in training software that is updated and always ahead as the baddies are ahead. Sorry to use the colloquial term, but that's how I communicate to my customers. So prevention is end user training. You've just solved 80% of your problem. If your staff aren't doing the things they're doing that are getting the baddies in, you're one step ahead. The next
Can I ask you,
step,
sorry,
yes.
David, before you go on to the next step, how effective is it really to train people? Because don't they remain naive or or does it have a real, what is your success rate?
It's a great question. So the answer is that there is a lot of money now in developing user training online systems. They are so state of the art now. They are friendly, they're fun. And the best part of it is they've gamified the whole end user training. So our clients have fun learning, solving problems as humans do. You know, when we get spare time, we go onto our phones and we play those quick little, I don't know, snake games, backgammon games. It's our human interest now. They've created gamified solutions and these software companies around end user training to prevent these type of risks or alleviate these type of risks. So the answer is it's bigger than maybe you and I even thought about 6 months ago, of what is out there around end user training and how fun and fluid and friendly it is.
So, I mean, Ryan, thanks for that. He's saying the Inside Man is a great series that can be used as training for employees. It keeps the employee engaged and learning. I mean, that sounds very, very interesting. Thanks for that. And then, David, also what you're saying, I mean, because people don't want to sit through a lot of tech talk.
No,
although I think your average person has got a lot more affair with IT terms. I don't know if that's a fair statement, but it is, I mean, the gamification, all of that to keep people involved. And so does this become part of people's KPIs? You know, does it become of your performance criteria to go on this training and to not make breaches, or how far do they push this down the line into organizations?
The software the software that I work with is so high, you know, ahead, that it taps in directly to the HR department, so they will know if an end user hasn't completed the course and got more than 70% or whatever, and then whether they attach it to the KPIs in the employment contracts. I haven't really tapped into that yet. I would imagine so. I know when I speak to my customers, I always try make it a bit more friendly than that. You know, make it fun, and maybe in your daily huddles or weekly huddles is bring up who's won, who's lost, who's ahead, who's not ahead, and make it quite embarrassing to not have attended the course. Is the way the world's turning now. I'm sure you're aware that we're going to 4-day work weeks. Soon it's going to be 3-day work weeks. We've got hybrid work solutions now. People are coming to work, people aren't coming to work. We've got 24/7 work solutions where staff don't have hourly based KPIs, they've got performance based KPIs. So it's become a softer world within solution based. So that's kind of the conversations I'm having with clients and customers, is around make it fun, don't make it forced around end user training, because it's that important.
Yeah, I've heard about this 4-day work week, but I haven't tasted it yet. So we're obviously in the wrong business as corporate governance people. So, I mean, one of the things I want to latch onto quickly is when we're talking about end user training, is I just want to link it to the board and committee usage. I mean, a lot of boards are using online platforms for their board portals and online systems to manage their packs and to all of that. And I mean, and a lot of time, how a company's board is structured, you've got your board, you have your audit and risk meeting, and the audit and risk also takes care of your IT steerco or your IT issues. And what we're finding is that I don't think that the boards, as a general, I mean, they get boards with amazing IT knowledge or knowledge about cybercrime, cybersecurity. But I mean, as a general, it's not yet there where I think the boards really know what they are dealing with. They're really leaving it to executives, to the CIO. I mean, the CIO is the Chief Information Officer, who I would say a decade ago didn't really exist, right? I don't know if I'm making that period too short, but I mean, it's an executive position, because companies started saying our IT, our technology, our data. I mean, that's what King did. King said technology is important, data is important, two separate things, but it's important, and it's a key strategic asset that we have. I mean, I've heard things like data is gold, data is weaponized. You know, there's a lot of words around this. So what I'm getting to is that I'm wondering to what level it is required to give boards updates on IT developments. I mean, what would your I mean, similar to the session we're having today, what would your recommendation be?
So a good IT leader needs to bridge the gap between business strategy and IT. I'm of the opinion, I am biased, that the CIO should be employed on any organization with 50 staff or more, even on a part-time basis. There's lots of solutions to that today. You don't have to have the big spend. I believe that that CIO, we call it at that position, some companies call it CTO, should report on a monthly basis to the board. And not just report on what the agreements were at the last session, but have some type of, you mentioned KPIs earlier, so statistics that get reported on how IT added value to the business overall strategy on a monthly basis. Whether it's, decreasing risk, decreasing costs, putting efficiencies in place, automating manual solutions, manual tasks using solutions. So my short answer, there was a long answer, short answer is monthly. There should be feedback.
I don't know if they'll give you that much time, but I mean, what I'm taking from what you're saying is that you really have to match your IT strategy to the business strategy. Where is we going? What does it do? And in a lot of companies, it's digital transformation. That's the language that's being spoken to as a line item, as a strategic objective. So I think it's lower down in the maturity of IT because it's not optimizing yet. It's actually digitizing our paper-based processes, right? Okay,
Yes.
but let's go to the comments. Gareth said cybercrime is going to cost the world $8 trillion in 2023. So this year, if it's measured as a country, then cybercrime would be the world's third largest economy after the US and China. I mean, that's shocking. And it means that money is flowing. And then Ryan is asking David, how do you rate no B4 as a system? So no with a capital B and a 4 as a system. I don't know if you know that, David.
I don't know that particular service.
So let's open that to everyone on the call. If you do know before as a system, maybe you can rate it and give your opinion if you are using it. That would help. That would help a lot. Okay, so let's go to the next one. You said prevention security.
Sure. So I use the analogy here of us at home. I understand we've got an international crowd today, but in South Africa, we feel quite insecure in our houses. So we've got multiple barriers. We've got electric fences. We've got big gates. We've got armed response and dogs, and on and on and on. So what we've learned as an MSP is antivirus is not enough. Just from a pure security prevention, you need a stack of elements to always be watching you, always protecting you. So I've mentioned, I consider a full stack of security software. So antivirus is there, firewalls is there, email security is there, DNS protection is there, and just something I left out here, but it's quite important, is something called RMM. Modern RMM software has got automated, let's call it automation and AI built into to watch for changes and behavior changes in the data and how it's manipulated and used on an endpoint or a computer or a server, to the point where it will shut down a system automatically if it detects something is behaviorally different, and email the MSP, your IT provider or your IT manager, and say, we shut this machine down, something doesn't look right. And that's what we call the stack of security. So just from a prevention point of view, really look at your stack and maybe compare it with Google, best international practices and things like that.
It's really levels of barriers. So it's a few hurdles that people have to cross. So you'll have a wall, you have electric fence, you have a moat, different levels. Crocodiles. Okay. And what is your cure? Because this is after something has happened, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we at Switched On believe the cure is only as good as the disaster recovery policy. I've just thrown some questions that we all need to ask while we're developing this policy. Is what are we backing up? How often will we test the recovery? Because the backup is only as good as the recovery test. How often will we do that test? How long does it take to recover? So assume you've been hacked and all your data has been encrypted, and you're not going to pay this bugger that wants bitcoins from you, and assume that, and then test how long it'll take to recover. And very important is who's responsible for all of this stuff on your office. Who's that one IT person that when that the red light goes clanging, that you can call on and and can just push out all this recovery. And what is the action plan in the crisis? A lot of companies have got an action plan if there's a fire. What is your action plan if the server gets hacked and encrypted? We call that a disaster recovery plan. You could call it a disaster recovery policy, who knows? So that's the cure, is developing this disaster recovery plan, testing it, retesting it, and fixing it if it doesn't work.
Okay, no, that sounds like a good 3-step process. And on the next slide, you're talking about have a CIO.
Yes, couldn't just go there. So
talk us through that, please.
What we've learned is it's it depends on the size of your business. If you're large enough to be employing your own IT manager and staff, it's not enough to treat IT and IT security as a commodity. It's got to be treated as a real-time risk in your organization, and also as a benefit to your organization where IT and technology can add value to your business and your business strategy. And that's where a CIO steps in. It's a senior executive, sits on the board, and is responsible for using technology to help you achieve your goals and strategies. You'll see I've just done 3 ideas there. A CIO does much more. He or she drives the digital transformation that Ronald was mentioning, drives innovation, drives growth. These are all positive words. It's not a unnecessary spend as some of my clients think IT is. A CIO must develop and implement the strategies to minimize the cyber risk. So, for example, the disaster recovery plan, a CIO can run with it and be responsible for driving it out. An IT manager is not trained specifically in that. An IT manager is trained into the day-to-day projects that are required to just keep your business running. A CIO will oversee planning, implementation, and management of technology initiatives, once again, that support the business goals.
So what you're saying to me is the IT guy in the corner in a dark office where computers go to die, that's not the CIO anymore. They've gotten to the lift and they've gone to the top floor.
Correct, and wearing white collar shirts.
No, it's blue nowadays, right? But I mean, this for me really, I mean, it must be an extremely stressful job to be a CIO when things go wrong. And when things go right, I mean, I don't know. I can just see in so many organizations where they take hardware, software, networks, development, data growth, data mining, data understanding your data, data analysis, where they take all that serious, where it actually does give you quite a lot of information to make decisions on. And that's what our boards need, right?
Yes. So you're talking about the positive part of the CIO experience is presenting information in an automated fashion, hopefully, to the decision makers of the business. Is definitely one portion of what a CIO does, is develops those systems or brings them in. And that's one of the ways that they add value to the business while putting in these risk aversion strategies and plans. I just to go back to your point about it being a stressful job, absolutely. However, there are templates, there is world standards on how to be a CIO, and it's almost like tick the box stuff, that if you tick these boxes, you're as the leader of technology in an organization, you can definitely sleep at night, especially if you're putting things in the planning and the testing around risk. Does alleviate that high risk job profile of a CIO.
And can I ask you a gender question, if you allow me? What is the ratio of women in this industry?
So if you're saying in IT industry, the good news is at my organization, it's pretty much 50-50. We've got female leadership, which has really worked for us because we found there's a different type of, if I can say, forgive me, a nurture side to IT as well. And I found, so in our organization, our 2 leaders in our technology department is a female and a male. It was the best thing I ever did. So it's 50-50 in our organization. As CIOs sitting on boards, I haven't met a female yet. It's been a very masculine experience, but who knows what the future brings.
Yeah, hopefully. And how do you become a CIO? I mean, what's your path? I suppose there's different
Great
pathways.
question. So I don't believe, and I can be called out, that there's a course, a CIO course or a degree. Our experience is the guys, so we rent out CIOs as a service, a part-time service. We've got 3 gentlemen on our board, board that we present to clients. What I found is all of them started off as hardcore IT guys. They studied at the university, programming, hardcore IT stuff, which I didn't do. I did engineering. And then they, in their 30s, they got access to business. They landed up in management positions. And then they retired in their 40s and 50s and work together with Switched on IT, offering that the hardcore technology development skills together with their business acumen seems to be, for me, the best presentation and solution to part-time CIO services.
Yes, and I mean, I can see that if you want to have a seat on Exco, it's very much being a technical expert and then being exposed to business so that you can also function across the different functions to look holistically at a business. And what we're seeing on board level is that a lot of boards would love to have people who are experienced in IT CIO roles to serve on boards. So if you are one of those people and you're online, please send us a mail because I'm going to refer you to Monica. She does our recruitment and placement for our non-execs. And when opportunities come up, that there might be an opportunity. But I mean, now I just want to focus on the board. I mean, boards meet 4 times a year. Their agendas are jam-packed. I mean, they cannot only look at one thing. But if you have to give a few things that you think a board should look at from an oversight perspective on IT, what are the key things that you think that a non-executive director should look at and know?
I do apologize. I've been clicking. My internet glitched. I didn't get the last 10 seconds, Renal. I'm so sorry.
No problem. No problem. I know a good IT guy, hey? So,
yeah.
So, now I was asking that what are the key things that a board member should know from your world experience? I mean, they have very little capacity. It's very strategic. So what are the key things that you think non-executive directors and boards should keep their radar? What should be on their radar?
I'm going to give you a cheeky answer and then just focus me. And the cheeky answer is they need to know the right people to speak to in the technology space, because it's unfair to expect someone that isn't trained in technology or IT to be aware of what the latest things are. So I would say just have a really good black book and preferably somebody on board that can answer those questions. So, IT is so huge. So, for example, there are specialists who in the CIO space that work in cost saving, and they would have relationships, for example, with many, many enterprise vendors. So you want to have that kind of person just a phone call away. I know it's probably not the answer you wanted, but my answer is knowing the right people to help your organization scale up, save on costs is actually the answer for a typical board member.
Yeah,
not to have to know the technology themselves.
Yeah, you know what is the challenge of non-executive directors? What they have to keep their eye on is quite wide. There's a lot of stuff. If you look at any certain function or the strategic direction of the organization. So it's almost like what I'm looking for, and maybe it doesn't exist, which you need to tell me, but it's almost like, we did talk last time with the marketing guys about data health. I mean, is there something like system health? Is there something like security health? Or do we just look at breaches? I mean, do we wait for it to land? Or do we, what are the things, if you're on the board and not necessarily an IT expert, that the questions you should ask is, guys, do we have this in place? It used to be, do we have antivirus? Do we have, and now you're saying no. So is it like, what's our training program? Is it Ryan, I must go back to the...
I would allude to the 3 things that I've brought
inside
up. Is end user training, where are we with that? The security stack, where are we with that? and disaster recovery testing and policies. That would be my answer. Those are the three things to focus on.
Okay, no, that's interesting.
In this space, not the general overall IT. I mean, IT,
so it's,
but in
yes,
the conversation we're having today.
Yeah, so it's saying, is the training in place? Is it like Inside Man? Is it fun? Do people participate? What's the participation rate? Is it security? What's in place? You know, is it, of course, you don't want to publish this widely what's your security stack, but knowing that there is a stack. Is it about, there's a disaster recovery in place? It was tested. This was the results. This is what we're working on. And staying up to date with the latest, I would say, security advancements or hacker trends, like you've just said. I mean, what you've basically said to us is guys, cloud security, AI, zero trust architecture. Are those the things that you would have and that you would want your CIO to put in his report for the board?
Yes, absolutely. I would summarize what we've spoken about today, say that'll be a good start.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I mean, the bigger the organization, the more resources you can throw at this, because, so you've mentioned part-time CIO. I'm sure employing a full-time CIO comes at quite a rate. How available are these CIOs in South Africa and internationally?
So internationally, I can't help you, unfortunately, but in South Africa, I'm very in step with this need. One of the challenges you've got with full-time leadership positions in the technology space is job hopping is a risk, and a real risk, because they also job hop with IP. A case study, a Bidvest company, I can say Bidvest company because there's so many, I'm not telling you which one, with about 3,000 staff, 50 branches around the country, approached us about this particular problem. Our solution was to document everything that happens in the technology space that's off a human being's brain, and also to provide a part-time CIO that uses the documentation that the client has got access to, so that it's always transparent and always available. And if that CIO happens to job hop, it doesn't matter. The next CIO jumps in, and a month later they're on board. And just to let you know, this solution worked on a part-time basis for quite a big company, 3,000 staff, 50 branches nationwide. Bidvest company worked very well with a part-time solution that didn't cost the hundreds of thousands per month that a full-time CIO would charge, at the risk of job hopping.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so I mean, if I have to wrap, I mean, if there's any last questions or comments, please pop it in the chat before we sign off. Oh, there's one more. So Microsoft provides something called a secure score. This provides boards an overview view of their Microsoft security. It helps if they are cloud first. Okay, that gives us already some kind of score, which helps us benchmark. That's great. And then Ryan is asking, what kind of tick boxes are you referring to? Frameworks such as COBIT? Are you using, so that's probably relating to my question about how do we score the IT?
From my point of view, it's not a one-stop solution. It depends on the company, depends on their strategies, how their IT works. I don't have an answer for that in a generic phrase today for you guys. It would be very specific to each of your companies, how I would answer that.
Okay, no. So guys, I mean, for me, this was very interesting. David, thanks for joining us. Everybody on the call, every attendee, thanks for this. I mean, what I took out of this was really about you need to stay ahead of the curve, because the curve, if you're not staying ahead of it, or at least not too far behind hackers or attempts, and you need to really relook and rethink your IT security strategy, because it's not old school. It's really about machine learning, AI. It's about zero, I like that phrase, zero trust architecture. It's about, and for my board, I really think it's nice to know, okay, well, a good start is to say, let's train, secure, and then cure. So I like that as well. So everyone, thank you very much for joining. Everyone, especially Ryan, on giving all your comments. And we will see you on the 4th of May. No, sorry. Oh, it's 4th of May. We're skipping April because a lot of people are away, and we're talking about modern governance systems of the late 21st century with Advocate Annemarie van der Merwe, our executive chair, and Johannes von Schmetto from the Netherlands. And I'm really looking forward to this. It might not sound very sexy, but I promise you it will be. So please don't miss that one. Thanks everyone. Have a very great week, and thanks for joining. Bye bye.